On this episode of the San Francisco Show, we'll be riding through Golden Gate Park from west to east. On the way, we'll talk to the general manager of the park and hear some soothing music from Ashtutika. Let's ride. Work it, Nate. If you look at the design of San Francisco, it apes New York City in a lot of ways. But in one way, I think San Francisco outdoes New York, and that's with Golden Gate Park. Golden Gate Park's the second biggest urban park in the country at 1,017 acres. It's got a lot of incredible hidden features. Archery range, golf course, angler's pond, the oldest model yacht club in the country, lawn bowling, and this, up ahead, the Dutch Windmill. The Dutch Windmill was commissioned by John McLaren in 1903 and was used to pump groundwater through the park for irrigation. John McLaren's a name you want to remember because we'll be talking about him again in a minute. During the pandemic, the park has been an incredible refuge for San Franciscans. And that seems appropriate because after the 1906 earthquake, the park housed up to 40,000 citizens who lost their homes after the earthquake and fire. The original purpose of the park was to entice people to move out to this side of the city. At the turn of the century, or just before, there was nothing out here but sand dunes. So we're lucky enough today to be joined by Phil Ginsberg, who is the general manager of the Recreation and Parks Department in San Francisco. Phil's credited with creating a system where 100% of the residents are within a 10-minute walk of a park, which I think is amazing. Thanks for joining us, Phil.
Oh, Barry, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm just jealous I'm not on a bike with you.
So I know you're responsible for a lot more than just Golden Gate Park. Tell us a little more about what your department does.
Well, we oversee about 4,000 acres of open space in San Francisco, over 225 parks. We operate a marina. We operate our beloved family camp up at Mather. We have a bunch of golf courses. We got over 180 playgrounds. We've got rec centers and clubhouses. It's a really big system. And as you noted, the thing that I'm most proud about is that it's accessible to all San Franciscans.
How many years you've been in that job, and how many parks have you added over that time?
I've had the pleasure of being in my role for about 12 years, and actually we have added, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 parks with a few more coming online. So we've really worked hard at identifying where we have gaps in open space in our city, and meeting the needs of a city which has evolved over 150 years.
Okay, so tell me, what have been the big challenges and big successes through the pandemic here?
Well, through the pandemic in particular, well, look, I mean, the pandemic has turned our world upside down. And April 4th of last year, we were hoping to host a party for 150,000 people in Golden Gate Park, where you're riding now, to celebrate the park's 150th anniversary. And we had scheduled 150 activities with 150 community partners all throughout the park. Everything was going to be free. About our 150-foot observation wheel, and then the pandemic hit, and we had to adapt, and we haven't been able to have large events. Look, the change management associated with the pandemic has really been difficult. First and foremost, making sure we're keeping everybody safe and healthy, both park users and our staff. But the rules have changed continuously. So we have to be really good planners. We have to be proactive. We have to be good communicators. And we have to really understand and lean into just how important parks are right now. This has been a moment for parks in San Francisco, not just in San Francisco, but nationally. I think the world is realizing just what an important role parks play to people's physical and mental health. We have seen Golden Gate Park has been mobbed. You are or we're riding on a car-free street on MLK, and we've added car-free space on JFK, and we've seen an increase in pedestrian and bicycle traffic of 600%.
You mentioned that a lot of the 150th year celebrations were canceled. What's in store for 2021?
So what's in store for 21? You know, part of this will depend on the health order, but as I mentioned, the tennis center is soon going to open. The dog park's opening this weekend. We have asked to that the wheel stick around for a long time, a few more years, so people can enjoy it. And you know, we want to welcome people back to music in the park. We have a beautiful, newly renovated band shell in the music concourse. So we're really eager to reopen and welcome everybody back to the picnics and some of the celebrations that people are accustomed to. So we all need to continue to do the right thing and wear a mask and socially distance and be smart and get vaccinated so we can get back to enjoying parks as we used to.
And so the last question is, how can viewers get involved with supporting the park? What would you like them to do?
Oh, well, love your park. The easiest thing you can do is you can treat it as the sacred space that it is. If you're going to come and you're going to picnic or do whatever, you know, pack it in, pack it out. Of course, during the pandemic, continue to be safe and smart. We've been able to keep our park system open during the pandemic because for the most part, San Franciscans are doing the right thing. We want to keep our parks and trails and activities open and available to all. But if you want to volunteer, look us up at sfrecpark.org. If you've got some ideas on a project or you want to donate, again, sfrecpark.org, or get involved in the San Francisco Parks Alliance, or if you've got a knack for horticulture, check out the San Francisco Botanical Garden Society. Be in our parks, be safe, be joyous, be kind, be respectful, and that's what makes our park system special.
Super. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Barry, thank you. Keep riding, man.
So when I think of Golden Gate Park, I think of the serenity that it's brought so many citizens over the past year. And I found some music that I think really matches that. It's from Ash Chutika. The song is called Sarah's. And welcome to the show, Ash.
Thanks. Really excited to be here.
So tell me about, so I know you're a classically trained musician, but you got interested in this really unique instrument called the hang drum. Tell me about it a little bit and how you got interested.
Absolutely. Would love to share my story. So growing up, like you mentioned, was classically trained on trombone, and I was more of a brass musician. And as I grew older, I started to branch out as a multi-instrumentalist, playing guitar, bass, as well as percussion. It was first when I heard Dante Bucci. He's a prolific handpan musician who, unfortunately, rest in peace, he passed away a few years ago. And when I first heard his music, I was so inspired by just the ethereal, the resonant tones produced by the hang drum. The hang drum is an instrument first invented by Felix and Sabrina, a couple in Switzerland in the year 2000. And it was influenced by world instruments like the Trinidad steel pan, the tabla, and instruments throughout the world. So that's sort of how I discovered it. And since then, I've been playing handpan for over 8 years now.
You've been in San Francisco for a while. How does being in the city influence what you're doing?
I feel the landscapes throughout the city, they really influence my music. Everything from all the rolling hills and the microclimates, going from the forests of Golden Gate Park to the cliffs of Land's End, to even the foggy eucalyptus forests of Glen Canyon Park. All of these settings really influence, first of all, the tones and the expressions within the music and the emotion behind the music, but also even why I'm interested in the hang drum to begin with and the handpan to begin with.
That's a good segue into my next question. How would viewers find your music?
So you can find Sartori Ensemble's music on Bandcamp, and the link is satoripan.bandcamp.com. And we have several albums up there, some with instruments including the guitar and bass, others even including the sitar and piano. So quite a big variety to listen to there.
Nice. And what do you have planned for 2021, 2022?
Yeah, for the next couple of years, I took a brief hiatus in our ensemble. Didn't tour last year, perform last year, but I'm very much looking forward to playing some more performances around the Bay Area. Previously we played at events ranging from Joshua Tree National Park all the way up to Marin. So excited to get back, whether it's intimate events or even larger venues. Excited for that. And we're also going to be releasing a few new albums as well.
So we're going to enjoy your music now while riding through the park. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Earlier, I mentioned that there were two hidden heroes that I wanted to mention during our ride today. The first one, well, going back to the Midwinter International Expo, there was the Japanese parlor here just up ahead. And after the exposition was done, a man named Makoto Higawara offered to convert the temporary exhibit into a permanent Japanese tea garden. So Mr. Higawara did that and is credited with a lot of the improvements in the garden. And in fact, he continued to care for that garden for 48 years. He built a house inside of this tea garden, raised his family there, and his daughter eventually took over for him until 1942, when something very tragic happened. Because of World War II, the United States issued Executive Order 9066, which sent 122,000 Japanese Americans to internment camps. So essentially, they were evicted from this property. Their belongings were also confiscated, and a lot of them sold without their permission. Is probably one of the most popular parts of the park for visitors. The music concourse was originally excavated in 1894 for the California Midwinter International Exposition. It was like a World's Fair. You'll see in a minute that there was a big bowl excavated that has a band shell and a garden and a fountain, and that bowl was surrounded by exposition buildings. Come to visit this area of the park, you'll notice there's lots of statuary around this music concourse. Here's one of Beethoven. Those are remnants from the exposition. But it's ironic because the master horticulturist that designed the park was named John McLaren, who we mentioned earlier. John McLaren was opposed to having statues in his park. He wanted a natural environment. The statue of Mr. McLaren was created, and apparently, because he worked here his entire life, 53 years as the park superintendent, he hid the statue among trees and bushes. So you have to imagine that in the late 1800s, this part of the San Francisco was just sand dunes. So John McLaren is credited with changing those sand dunes into the park you see today by first planting grass across the park, which then created an environment that was suitable for trees. The trees help stabilize the dunes, which makes this park possible. Thank you to our guests, Phil Ginsberg and Ash Tutika, for joining us today. Don't forget you can find Ash's music on Bandcamp. I'll place the link below. If you enjoyed this tour and want to see another one, like and subscribe.